I'm going to stick with the most important story of the day, this attack on Israel. I'm joined now by Sky News contributor Joe Hildebrand. Joe,
g'day, Cory.
Thanks for joining me. This is a hugely passionate topic for me.
Yep.
But I want to remind you, a woman whose lifeless and semi-naked body was paraded in the back of a Hamas pickup truck as militants sat on top of her and jeered following their violent incursion that was into Israel, was last night identified as a German tattoo artist. She wasn't a military figure. She was a tourist there, a tattoo artist, Joe. This is shocking and unbelievable, and people are cheering this sort of barbarity. How should the West be responding to this?
Yeah, I think the cat has well and truly been belled on this, and I agree with much of what you said earlier on, Cory. It's an absolutely obscene situation. It is grotesque. There aren't enough sort of adjectives to describe how horrific it is, but it also puts the lie to the narrative that has been peddled by Hamas and other extremist terrorist organisations, and which has been fallen for by so many people in the West on the left, people who consider themselves educated and intelligent, believe it or not, and certainly smarter than the rest of us. This is terrorism, plain and simple. These are not freedom fighters. This is not an oppressed people rising up against an apartheid state. This is terrorism. It is terrorism because women, reportedly children, from what I've heard from friends in Israel, have been targeted as well. We know that they're lying now, sadly, because this young woman who was attending a music festival, and I just invite anyone who still has some sympathy for these people to imagine if it was their kid at the big day out or a music festival in Australia who suddenly got dragged off by machine gun wielding thugs and was then next seen naked and dead being driven around on the back of a truck while crowds cheered. Now, this person obviously was being presented by Hamas as an Israeli militant or a spy or whatever crazy narrative they want to tell themselves and their supporters. And this is, again, these people are cowards. These people in a set-piece battle against the Israeli Defence Force, there is absolutely no way they could or would ever win, even with their backers in Iran. And so they target women, they target children, they target civilians, and then they pretend that they've just brought down this big, tough, strong soldier, even if it's a big, tough, strong 25-year-old woman soldier, as they're apparently telling these people. And no, it's nothing of the sort. It's someone who was at a music festival, then got kidnapped and then got executed. Now, we know that other organisations have done similar things in Northern Africa, or Africa generally, Boko Haram, for example, when they came and abducted a whole bunch of schoolgirls. Now, when that happened, did we say the Nigerian government should have restraint? Did we say all sides should come together to continue to work for peace? When ISIS was running rampant through Iraq and Syria and the Levant, did we say, oh no, we need to sit down at the negotiating table with ISIS and see if we can find a peaceful way forward? Did anyone tell the Americans that they had to show restraint after 9/11 wiped out 3,000 innocent people in New York? Of course not. Of course not. It's unthinkable.
Well,
and yet you have these people captivated by this ideology.
Yeah, and this is the thing, right? Let's assume for the sake of the show, you're more left-leaning and I'm more right-leaning in our political disposition. But the true lefties have to express solidarity and with Palestine at every opportunity. They don't want to praise Israel at all. And I want your opinion. Am I reading too much into Penny Wong's tweet today where she called for restraint, right? Was she targeting Israel to suggest that they should be restrained here? And because where was the condemnation of the behaviour of these Islamic militants?
Well, clearly, look, I don't think it was deliberate, and I don't think it was an intentionally provocative statement, even though I know a lot of people have quite rightly and understandably taken it as such. But again, I think it was just this default position. People on the left, on the hard left, I do not identify myself as the hard left, but again, you know, I think
no, I wasn't suggesting you were.
But that's right, and in fact, you know, people, you know, moderate people of the moderate left like myself, it's the hard left are our worst enemies because they're the ones who undermine everything we try to achieve. But again, I think it is just that default position where they've just become so captive to that argument, to that belief that, you know, everything Israel does is bad and everything Palestine does is good, that they still put a fig leaf of legitimacy on these terrorists. And again, we've seen what they do. Obviously, she couldn't have been urging Hamas to show restraint because it had already come out and killed about 300 people and taken another 100 or more hostage, who have probably since been killed already anyway. Thousands more have been injured. There looks like there's an attack in the north from Hezbollah, which is backed by Lebanon. We don't know now. It seems Hezbollah and Hamas are now talking to each other and cooperating with each other, which is an absolutely abhorrent thought. Israel's only chance of survival in the recent years has been that Hezbollah and Hamas were basically divided unto each other. And again, the idea that these are legitimate states, I mean, how can you have any grievance that these people had surely is immediately delegitimised by the fact that they've come in and started just murdering and abducting women and children? What possible cause can be just if this is what its champions do when they're out there? Again, it's bad enough that Israeli military personnel are frequently targeted, regularly targeted. You know, we saw the IRA do similar things in Ireland. That is bad enough, and no one would condone that either. But the idea that you would say, oh no, we're a genuine, you know, liberty-seeking band of brothers who just want to free Palestine, and we're going to do it by killing this innocent German girl, or we're going to do it by parading these naked bodies through the street. That is the behaviour. That is not the behaviour of a freedom fighter. That is the behaviour of a terrorist, and it is not the behaviour of someone who wants to free the yoke of oppression. It's the behaviour of someone who specifically hates a particular state and citizens of that particular state and wants to kill them, wants to wipe them out.
Exactly. And I don't know if you've ever watched, Palestinian television, right? But they are producing the most rabid anti-Semitic propaganda with, caricatures of Jews and pointing out, to kids they're hiding behind the rocks and we should hunt them down and things like this. It is absolutely atrocious. The West has pretended it doesn't really exist. You've got tens of thousands of people cheering on the deaths of innocents and hailing these jihadists as some sort of heroes. I mean, why should we be continuing to fund or aid or support, the territories which hide and abet and aid these terrorists?
Yeah, look, obviously the whole Israel-Palestine question is incredibly fraught. There is, 2,000 years of history that has gone into it. I was there myself last year trying to get my head around it. I was a guest of the Australian Israel Jewish Affairs Council, before anyone asks. And we spoke to a lot of Palestinian leaders as well. We went to the West Bank. It was obviously far too unsafe to go to the Gaza Strip, which is a complete basket case, as we've just seen. And look, it's incredibly complex, and I've got real problems with and disapprove very strongly over the actions of some of the more aggressive Jewish settlers who are going into lands where clearly they do not have a legal right to be, and that is an act of provocation. But no act of provocation can possibly justify the abduction and murder of innocent men, women and children. And the minute that you start behaving in such a way, they are not the rules of warfare. War is ugly enough and deadly enough as it is, but this is not the rules of warfare. This is the behaviour of a terrorist organisation. These are terror tactics, the very definition of it being to terrify an entire population, target innocents, and think that if you do not comply with my demands, anyone could be next, no matter who or where they are. And again, the idea that people, even after this, would be coming out in support of these actions is, to me, just unthinkable, because what you are doing is you are supporting murder. You are supporting the murder of women. You are supporting the murder of children. And if anyone dared utter those sentiments in any other context, quite frankly, you'd have the same left demanding that they be jailed for hate speech or misogyny or God knows what else. But if it's Jewish women and children, apparently it's okay. It is honestly disgraceful, and I think we're going to see a lot of reckoning with a lot of these people. Some will be too scared to say anything at all. Others will put their money where their mouth is and be identified accordingly. But it is. Finally, I think the rug has been pulled back on just what sort of an organisation Hamas is, just what sort of tactics they use, and anyone who still associates themselves with it or applies any kind of moral equivocation ought to be condemned in kind.
Well, there we are, Joe Hildebrand. You and I are on a unity ticket right there. Thanks so much for joining me on an incredible news day.
Yeah,
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks so much, mate.